could go basically across the street and enjoy the...
And I can attest the fact that it's great music, and people have been known to drink beer there.
Good.
Perfect for the last night of camping, right?
Yes.
Well, that's wonderful.
Good thing
Thank
you'll
you.
be on vacation.
Yeah.
Thank you both for coming in and joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
On Clearly Community. My guests have been Dana L. Strauss with the DEQ and Irv Gamby with the Thornapple River Watershed Council. I will put this up on my webpage at b93.com keyword race if you want more information about this. And maybe we can all get together that second week of August and take a canoe trip on the Thornapple River that I don't think we'll ever forget. Thank you both.
Thanks
Thank
very much.
you.
You've been listening to Clearly Community, a public affairs program of Clear Channel Radio.
Clearly Community is brought to you by the Michigan Education Association, Huntington Bank, and Michigan Department of Community Health. Need help quitting smoking? Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit line at 1-800-480-7848 to get your quit coach and to set your quit date.
Listen again next week at the same time for another edition of Clearly Community on your favorite Clear Channel radio station.
I knew I had a problem.
I tried counting calories, eating and eating.
Nobody else could possibly understand.
We understand. We're Overeaters Anonymous, and we have helped thousands of people stop their compulsive eating and start living a healthy, rewarding life.
With OA, I am living again and loving it.
Start living the life you deserve with help from Overeaters Anonymous. Find us on the web at oa.org.
Fox News Radio, I'm Liz White.
Thank you to everyone in South Carolina who decided to be with us in changing Washington.
Newt Gingrich won the South Carolina primary, beating Mitt Romney by double digits.
Romney's immediate future is Florida, and rallies and events beginning Sunday, continuing right up to the January 31st Florida primary.
Fox News Radio's Rich Johnson. Rescuers staying above water today, still searching the capsized cruise ship off Tuscany in choppy seas.
They're not putting any time frame at all on this operation, although I must admit that rescuers are now convinced that the chances of finding any more survivors now, more than a week after this disaster, are very, very slim.
Reporter Nick Pisa with Sky News. At least 12 people are confirmed dead and at least 20 others are missing. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast. Overcast skies today with a high of 36, southeast winds 15 to 25. It'll remain overcast tonight with rain at times and a low of 33, southeast winds 15 to 25 miles an hour. Tomorrow, windy with a mixture of rain and snow in the morning, and then snow showers in the afternoon with temperatures nearly steady in the upper 30s and southwest winds running 25 to 35 miles an hour. Keeping you informed, this is News Talk 1090 WKBZ. The Talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
Good morning, Muskegon. This is EyeOnMuskegon, and I'm Jim Riley here in Muskegon's Clear Channel studios with my friend and engineer, the legendary Oscar Osbo, and the soon-to-be, actually perhaps even more legendary, Susie Hughes.
Morning, Jim.
Good morning, Susie. And we welcome all of you folks out there in radio land and, of course, computer, smartphone, podcast land. One thing that we're going to make a little more of an effort is to remind people that, of course, you can listen to this show live on your AM radio, but you can also listen to it live if you go to newstalk1090.com. You can listen to the live stream, which is really a great way, especially if you're out of the radio area, or, well, so many people don't have AM radios any longer. I've got some friends that went out and actually bought an AM/FM little table radio, so they're all thrilled. I would hope you're listening out there, Nancy and John. But we do, there's the ability through the internet now is that you can go to EyeOnMuskegon.com, which is EYE on Muskegon, all one word, .com, and you can listen to the show anytime, any place. And we mentioned this in the past, but a lot of folks are a little unclear about it. If you just go to the website, there's a link. It's a YouTube link. Just click on it, and you can listen to the show anytime you like. And we try to make it easy, but there's another way that Oscar, because he's a media maven and a power.
I've never been called a maven before. I kind of like that.
You are, well, that's instead of pay. I spend a week in the thesaurus looking for accolades, and but you are, well, you've got your fingers in a lot of the local media and the West Michigan media. You know how things work, and why don't you just elaborate a little bit on what you've done with this show?
Don't you like it how I just stare at him and just...
I know. Did you notice how I locked up when you gave me that look?
Well, what we do now is we do your show. It comes on again at 8 p.m. every Monday on WMKG, which is TV 38, Comcast 397. And it runs for the hour and a half, or so. And, of course, you have your favorite commercial in there, too.
I love that. Well, go ahead. You talk about it.
Well, you've got your bad boys in there. So, you're one of the bad boys. So I figured that commercial fits pretty well with you. So,
The Bail Boys bonds.
Yeah, bad boys, bail bonds. Yeah,
if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out.
Yeah. I just love that. Well, those are the folks that apparently are actively supporting the show.
Right.
And so you can watch that show every Monday night.
Every Monday, and then following that, of course, is my show, which is Reminiscing with Paul Phillips with Peter Tripp. PT and OZ is what we call it, and it's called Reminiscing, and we just reminisce about some of the songs and some of the things that have happened in the past, like, of course, Etta James just passed away, and so we'll probably do something with her, and hey, Neil Diamond just turned 71. I couldn't believe that when I heard that.
Well, that used to be old. It's not old anymore.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
I was thinking young too.
It depends on your perspective.
I always thought Dolly Parton was older. She's only 66 this month. I thought she was like.
Ooh.
I would have figured she's older, too.
So did I.
She's been around so long.
What's the plastic, I think, on her face that's ready to crack?
I think there's plastic all over her body.
Yeah, all over her body, yeah. But anyway, 8 o'clock every Monday. It's a great show.
Well, let me just add...
It's kind of like a rebroadcast of the last week's show.
Okay. Well, I just would add that your show reminisces with Oscar and PT.
Yeah, PT and OZ is what we
PT and OZ.
call it, yeah.
Is really fun. You play great, the oldies, and you've got the records right there. You give a little talk about the label, which is nobody talks about that any longer, and you've got some really spectacular, I think, videos. Some of them of young Oscar and
which
young
is pretty
Muskegon.
scary. Yeah,
yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. So I would recommend to everybody.
I'm trying to find a picture of my platform shoes I can put on there, too.
Well,
but,
let's
I
do it,
haven't
dude.
found them just yet. But we're going to use some of Susie's pictures on some of these 45s also.
And Susie is an inordinately accomplished photographer.
Well, I guess I should say I just have cameras.
Well, you take great
job.
stuff.
Yeah.
I know that one of the very neat pictures that we've seen of late has been the pictures that you've got of these snowy owls.
Right.
Really beautiful shots of these owls that apparently are all over Muskegon County, if you know where to look.
Lately they have been here, but it's not usual for them to be here for this long. They usually just migrate through, but the weather kind of stopped them here.
Well, Susie's on the job there. And later on in the show, we have another spectacular guest, I believe. You don't have to be a political junkie to know that politics is in the air. We just had a big election in South Carolina last night, which we'll talk about in a moment. But in one of the rare occasions, and in good measure because of that election last night, the Michigan primary, which is going to be happening at the end of February, may very well be the critical primary election in the determining of who the Republicans will nominate for the presidency. And because of that importance, and believe it or not, you have to know what's going on now, even though it's 6 weeks or so before the election. We have a special guest today, and that is, I think, one of the finest county clerks in the state of Michigan, and that is Muskegon County Clerk Nancy Waters, and she's going to give us information on the election, and it's not as dry and dull as it sounds, because there's a lot of there's certainly things you need to know, in particular if you're going to be voting absentee, but also you want to know this in advance before you enter the polling booth, before the information that you're going to need, so you're not shocked.
Right, a bunch of new things are coming up for this election.
Yeah.
First time for all of us.
Well, that's right. And so anyway, we'll talk about that in greater detail down the road. Well, actually, about 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock, Nancy will be here. But as always, we are going to get going with hot topics, and I would like to start off here. We talked about Susie's photography, and this isn't Susie's, but if you get a chance, you can go on EyeOnMuskegon.com, and I posted it. It's also on the M Live site. But this tremendous, haunting picture of the Mackinac Bridge in the winter.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
And it's been going around Facebook, and I happened to see it on M Live this morning, so I posted it. If you get an opportunity, take a look. It's really cool.
Yes, it is. Very good.
I found it unfortunate that the Chronicle or the M Live site did not give attribution as to who took that photo. It's likely because they didn't know. But I would think that when they come up with the pictures of the year, that one will certainly be.
I would think so, too.
One of those nominated.
It was stunning.
I hope the person who took the picture does get some credit. As we mentioned, Newt Gingrich won last night. I find this interesting, not in a wonkish way, but after the bombshell that was dropped last night, or not last night, but this past week, from his wife talking about his infidelities, and Newt's response, and I found very interesting. Well, it was interesting, except now I've lost it. But it was a comment on the internet. It just said, Newt thanking John, the fellow from CNN, who had asked that
question.
It was
a great
rare.
comeback.
It was a great comeback, and it's just so rare. That we see as Republicans, those on the right. I mean, the left express their outrage, I think, very eloquently, often. And to me, it was a very interesting thing. But Newt, again, won in every single county in South Carolina, and I must say, I'm shocked that after all of this, the infidelity, there's some talk, that the South believes that moral values are more important maybe than some other parts of the country, and so I would just say that it's interesting. It keeps the nomination process alive. It makes it interesting, certainly for folks like us when we're talking on the radio or TV folks. And again, it makes that primary that we are going to be looking at in the not too distant future. It makes that much more important. And I did find the quote. This was they call it the Palmetto backfire. Newt to ABC and John King. Thanks to Mary Ann, Newt's ex-wife. To Mary Ann, the check is in the mail.
Well, it was great what he said, though. What a great comeback as far as how he put it. He put it very eloquently too, as far as the way he said it. I don't know exactly the words that he used, but by saying that the media is doing this to every politician that ever tries to run, why would anybody want to run in this race?
Absolutely.
I don't want to point because, of course, Democrat, but even back with President Clinton, when he was caught with the whole cigar scandal and the whole thing, I didn't like that. I'm sure a ton of people didn't. I know John Van Wyck and I got in a big discussion about it, and he was very mad about it. But the thing is, he still ran the country. He ran the country. I don't see where that personal life, that side life that they have, is anything to do with politics.
Well, I think it's, and I would tend to agree with you.
Unless they're child molesters or something like that, you want to bring that out. But I mean, I don't know.
Mr. Clinton was darn close to child molestation.
Well,
the 20-year-old volunteer page was his daughter's age. But and of course, Lewinsky, Monica Lewinsky's last name has now become a verb, so you can thank the President of the United States for that. But I do believe the media has the responsibility to report what's happened. But when John King and CNN made that the first question, made that the single most important item, and frankly, I must say that
report and hammer are two different things.
Exactly. So I don't want to overdo that because there's going to be so many the primaries, and I believe Florida is next week. There's a bunch of others, but again, that does make it that much more important for us coming to Michigan and being knowledgeable. A couple of other things. Let's say we've got some time. Good. We in 2 weeks will have Kaleem Salam, who is a wonderful speaker. He'll be our guest, and we'll of course talk about this in greater detail in 2 weeks. But he was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood at one point in his life, and is now traveling the country exposing many of the goals of the extreme Islamist factions out there. And so many in our country and in the world were cheering what's been called the Arab Spring. Well, the Egyptian elections, which take far longer than ours to finally complete, but they were just got the final results, I believe, yesterday. And almost 75%, almost 3/4 of all of the seats in Parliament will be held by either the hard right Islamists or the Muslim Brotherhood, and that bodes very poorly. I'd say certainly for the folks who live in Egypt, certainly in Israel, because Egypt is the only country in Arab country or the Islamic country that has chosen to deal with Israel, and that's very, very sad. And the reason I bring that up also is that an American, United States federal judge just blocked the implementation of an Oklahoma law that barred judges from considering international or Islamic law in their decisions. Now think about this. The good folks who live in Oklahoma said, look, we want our judges to base your decisions strictly on the United States Constitution and on the Oklahoma Constitution. Now, that should not be an outrageous, outlandish thought. But they passed this law because they were fearful, because Sharia law, Islamic law, and we've seen some other judges saying, well, the EU has a particular law or other things. They should be considered when we make our decisions. The people in the state of Oklahoma said, no, we don't want that. We like the Constitution of the United States, right, and we like our Constitution in Oklahoma. And a federal judge just this past week affirmed an order by a district court, and that halted the law from taking in effect. So, folks, there are forces out there who really do not like our country, and or at least the way its Constitution is set up. So we'll come back after a break, and we'll talk about a whole bunch of other things back at Eye on Muskegon.
Neon, day glow, flashing lights, special effects. Today's world puts our sense of sight on overload. Luckily, there are places we can go to refocus our senses. Our national wildlife refuges. It's a wonder how much you'll see once all the distractions fade away. You may see a lone eagle soaring past massive snow-capped mountains, or a great horned owl perched stoically on a branch nearby. You may see the furry face of a baby sea otter curiously poking its head out of the dark blue sea, or ancient rocks shaped by centuries of wind. When you see these things, you're seeing the world the way we found it. With over 500 refuges across America, you don't have to go far to make a special connection with nature. Learn more at fws.gov/refuges. That's fws.gov/refuges.
I can solve difficult problems for a Fortune 500 company.
I can run a successful business.
I can manage your home improvements.
I can publicize your message.
I can motivate your audience.
I can put my military experience to work for your company.
I can teach your children.
I can boost your bottom line.
I can add value to your workplace.
I could be a loyal and productive employee.
But I can't put my skills to work for your organization
if I'm not given the opportunity.
If you don't recognize my talents and ability.
If you don't hire me.
If you don't have an open mind and a workplace that's open to everyone.
If you don't realize that America works best when everybody works.
What can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do?
you can remember that it worked.
It's what people can do.
It's what people can do that matters.
Nearly 50 million Americans have disabilities. Capitalize on their talents with employment practices that benefit everyone. Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well,
And we are back at Eye on Muskegon. Muskegon's, we forgot to say, #1 rated political talk radio show.
That's true.
And who knows, now that we're on television, you got to watch out.
On TV, too, on local TV.
That's
anyway.
true.
Yeah.
Well, we are on TV, on prime time. You got to believe that the suits in Hollywood and New York are quaking in their Gucci shoes.
Oh, that's true.
And YouTube.
And YouTube, that's right. The YouTubers. Folks, we're everywhere. You cannot escape.
We're everywhere.
Just lay down and enjoy it. Lay back and enjoy it. I want to talk about something very specific to Muskegon before we get with Muskegon's County Clerk, Nancy Waters. And just this past week, Muskegon County Board of Commissioners passed a new, what they call new guidelines for room tax dollars. And they get quite a bit of money. The county takes money from customers who visit Muskegon County. They give it to the, or they're forced to give it to the hotels and others. And then that money that is turned over to the tourism marketing programs. But there was a vote this past week to start this new program. And the reason for this was last year, the city of Muskegon Heights had approached the county board and said, hey, we would like some money for our summer festival. This is something that they had been doing for years.
Right.
And you, Susie, in particular, but others got up and made comments that, wait a minute, the county is really got some very severe funding problems. And should we be funding out of tax dollars the cities, in this case, summer festival? You know, what's up with that? Whitehall doesn't get one. Norton Shores doesn't get any money. And a quite contentious debate came about. As a matter of fact, so contentious that the brave commissioners chose the first time around to table the issue. And I believe, actually, it might have been sort of half voted down the first time, but they came back again. A fair number of people from the Heights and other supporters of this free money from your tax dollars to the Muskegon Heights Festival, they showed up. Ultimately, all of the commissioners, in one form or another, voted to give Muskegon Heights your tax dollars, with the exception of County Commissioners Jim Derazinski, Marv Engel, and Alan Jagger. But everyone else, the 8 of the 11, voted either to give a $1,500 donation or $2,000 donation. And again, that the other communities complained. They didn't necessarily complain per se, but they said, hey, wait a minute, if you're giving out free money, why are you just giving it to one community over another? So, Susie, you had some thoughts on this because you wrote a very eloquent letter, I believe.
You know, I did. One thing, they already had a policy in place for that. And they had, my biggest gripe on the whole thing was that county board appointed a citizen advisory tax accommodations board, and it was up to them to take all of the requests and decide which ones have merit, which ones actually met the qualifications and the requirements of use of that money. And they recommended that the local festivals do not bring in enough tourism and enough vacationers to merit that money.
Okay, no, they made that recommendation prior to this decision to give them the money last year.
Prior to the very first one.
Okay, so we already had a policy in place.
We had a policy in place.
That worked just fine, except the commissioners ignored it.
And we had a citizen-appointed board in place, which we still have in place.
Well, it's again, you know, what happens is if you are, and I will use the term a coward, if you are a coward elected politician and you don't want to make a decision, you hire a citizens board, and then if that doesn't work, you know, if you don't like what the citizens board said, you still want to vote otherwise, then you'll set up a committee to study it, and if that doesn't work out, if the committee who's set up to study it says, well, you know, throwing money away is a bad idea, then you set up a blue ribbon committee to restudy it. And now what they've set up here is it says the new policy would establish criteria for the committee to use during its review of applications, blah, 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 blah. Also, interestingly, it says that the money would be paid directly to vendors for such items as advertising, blah, blah, blah. Now, in the past, they had just given the money, in this particular case, to the people who were running the Muskegon Heights Festival. There was no accounting of it. As a matter of fact, many people in the festival said, hey, we don't know where the money went. Right. And isn't there a county policy against this also?
Not necessarily against the festivals, but against giving any funds to anybody who is in arrears on payments that they owe to the county. And at that particular time, as I don't know, but I am assuming still, the city of Muskegon Heights does have back owed funds to the county, so that makes them not qualified.
I believe at the time it was $700,000 that was owed to the county.
And that was actually a county board policy that said you could not give money to.
So what happens is, again, there was a big discussion this past week, and we will go into this in much greater detail in the future here, but about the need for an enormously expensive new jail. And I know that our county commissioners are going to tell us that, hey, we don't have any money, times are tight, we've really got to tighten the belt. And yet 8 of the county commissioners that came out and said, no, we have no problem giving your money away for this. We will violate a county regulation that says we can't give money to folks that owe us money. We're going to take the Citizens Advisory Board. We're going to throw their recommendation out the window. These are the type of people. This is the courage that we have in our county leaders. We do have this wonderful opportunity coming up in February to determine our presidential nominee, but we have an even better opportunity coming up in August of 2012 to have a primary for these county commissioners. I think every one of them certainly should be forced to justify their votes, forced to justify. On one hand, they say we're out of money for very important issues like a jail, which is mandated by the state, and yet when they get their little personal pet projects, all of a sudden it isn't a critical issue to them, and I think it's very sad. So let's pick up the phones. You can go, by the way, EyeOnMuskegon has on the right side of the west of the blog, EyeOnMuskegon.com. It's got the names of all of the county commissioners, their email addresses, and their phone numbers. And you give them a call and say, hey, why do we need a whole brandy new set of rules when you guys violated the old ones, willy-nilly? Chances are you could do the same thing in the future, aren't you? I would think they would. Consistency is one thing that you can see with our elected officials at the county level.
But I think they are getting more scrutiny from the people now, and I hope that makes a difference.
One would hope. Here's another issue. We're just about running out of time, but the Muskegon Heights, of course, the school system's got a terrible situation. They are multi-millions, $4 million in the hole. Discussion to privatize the school bus drivers, clerical workers, reduce the insurance costs because they're going through the very expensive Michigan Education Association insurance. And when that was brought up, all unions, this is the quote from the Muskegon Chronicle article, quote, all unions rejected the concession. So what you have is virtually all of the money that is spent that has broken the back of the Muskegon Heights school system goes to the employees, be they teachers or the bus drivers or whatever, and to their benefits, and, of course, to pay for their insurance. And when approached, they just flat out rejected everything. So there is there a will or is there an interest in making things better for that community? It doesn't appear that there is. We'll see. This is a story that's continuing to go on. But they were $4 million in the hole, a year ago. Now they're $8 million in the hole. It keeps changing. So we got coming up at the top of the hour. We will be back with Muskegon County Clerk Nancy Waters, Susie Hughes, and the legendary Oscar Oswald and myself.
This is Mike McCready. You probably know me as one of the founding members of the rock band Pearl Jam and the band's lead guitarist. For the last 24 years, I've been living with Crohn's disease, a chronic and often painful digestive disease. Luckily, I have my disease under control. But so many of the 1.4 million Americans living with Crohn's and a similar disease called ulcerative colitis live day to day not knowing when their disease will strike next. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation is committed to transforming the lives of those impacted by Crohn's and colitis toward a future based on well-funded, cutting-edge research. You can help by joining one of CCFA's 130 Take Steps walks taking place around the country this year. Make the decision now to join us and take a step toward a future free from Crohn's and colitis. Sign up today at www.cctakesteps.org. That's cctakesteps.org. Take a step. Register today.
What did they do? What did they do to my city? I pushed Michael Yu away from the binoculars and took a look. Hey! In the streets below, traffic had stopped. Pedestrians were lying on sidewalks and curled up in doorways. There was no sign of violence, no wrecks, nothing like that. It was as if the people in New York had simply decided to stop whatever they were doing and pass out. Ice coated my stomach. A line from the prophecy rang in my ears.
And see the world in endless sleep.
Not dead. He has put the entire island of Manhattan to sleep. The invasion has started. To find out what happens next, read Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library, and visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
The Talk of Muskegon is News Talk 1090, WKBZ Muskegon, and heard 24 hours a day on WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Attention area car buyers! It's our first sale of the year at Great Lakes Ford Lincoln in Muskegon. Make winter driving fun and just go in the snow in a new 2012 Ford Edge, Escape, Explorer, Expedition, and F-Series pickup, or a Lincoln MKX, MKZ, Navigator, or MKT, all slash up to $9 grand off. $9 grand off! Now at Great Lakes Ford. Looking for pre-owned? Get an 08 Ford Escape 4x4 for just $229 a month with $0 down. An 05 F-150 Super Crew XLT with just 62,000 miles, or an 09 Ford Taurus all-wheel drive. Your choice, just $239 a month with $0 down. Plus, make no payments till spring. For credit, call 231-777-2750. And we want your trade-in. It's our first sale of the year. But hurry, it all ends soon at Great Lakes Ford Lincoln in Muskegon, the dealer you can trust.
Discount from MSRP, 4.99% APR, 72 months plus tax and fees with qualified credit rebates included, subject to prior sales. See dealer for details.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast. Overcast skies today with a high of 36. Southeast winds 15 to 25. It'll remain overcast tonight with rain at times and a low of 33. Southeast winds 15 to 25 miles an hour. Tomorrow, windy with a mixture of rain and snow in the morning, and then snow showers in the afternoon, with temperatures nearly steady in the upper 30s and southwest winds running 25 to 35 miles an hour. Keeping you informed, this is News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
I knew I was stuck at this kid's house for the night, but those guys snuck up on me to try and pull the hand in a bowl of warm water trick. Well, that was enough for me. I went downstairs to sleep in the basement, even though it was pitch black. I left my sleeping bag upstairs, and that was a mistake, because it was freezing. I think it was probably the longest night of my life. To read more about the sleepover, check out Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw by Jeff Kinney. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library, and visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Government, you saw it so-and-so's. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes.
And we are back at EyeOnMuskegon, Muskegon County's #1 rated political talk radio show. And we are the folks that do the hard work, the homework about local politics, so that you don't have to sit home all day, pouring through the internet, pouring through the sadly ever-shrinking Muskegon Chronicle. One thing I do want to mention, we do have, I would say, arguably the best county clerk in the entire state of Michigan, Nancy Waters, with us. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning.
Before we get into talking with Nancy, I do want to remind folks that, as we have in the past, we are at Carmen's Cafe at the corner of Clay and Jefferson, which I've been saying the wrong address for weeks. No. It is at the corner of Clay and Jefferson. But every Tuesday and Thursday, when the county commission is in regular session, I am there from 2 to usually about 3:15. This coming week will be the last meeting for the county commissioners, at least in regular session, and that will be on Tuesday. So I'll be there only on Tuesday, but you are most certainly welcome to join me. We talk any kind of politics. Everyone is welcome.
And it's the last meeting for the month.
It will be the last meeting for the month. So they've those hardworking folks over there at the board have got. I think this might be the 5th or 6th meeting for the month, and so they'll take Thursday and the rest of the month off. But this is a great opportunity, I would say, that for anybody who's interested in finding out not just county politics, and we talk about state politics also. We've had different mayors there, and we've had folks from Congressman Heisinger's office and others. So that's an opportunity. But enough of that, because we've got a real expert about something that's very important to us. And again, this is County Clerk Nancy Waters. And and I know Nancy wants to jump in and start talking here, but I do want, Susie, you had mentioned some things, your experience in going other places and the comments that other people who are very knowledgeable about this lady who sits next to me. Maybe you could extrapolate a bit.
That's true. I've been very impressed with all of the changes that she's made at the county clerk's office, and it didn't just stop here. Our Secretary of State gave you an award for all of the hard work you put in on getting all of the information about elections up online. I can't even imagine how difficult that was, and I just want to say that was a great, great effort, and it's a fabulous resource for people who are looking, especially the first time, into voting and looking at results of votes, what's required. It's just absolutely been fabulous. I congratulate you on that.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'll add to this, because two words that really matter to me and to this show, and that is elected officials and governmental openness and transparency. And those of you who have been interested in local politics in the past have found that aside from a talk radio show or somebody a few minutes on local television, it's very hard to get information about what's going on in the community. And in particular, it's hard to find out about who's contributing to whose campaigns and things of that sort. You could go down, Nancy, in the past, you could go down to the clerk's office and pour through, tons of paper. But now that information is right online. And maybe you could just, before we get into your real talk here, could tell people how they can find this information online?
Yes, we have a website that people can go to, and it is for campaign finance. And it's www.co.muskegon.mi.us/clerk/campaign finance, one word, .htm. And what happens when they go to this website, it's very user-friendly, and they can say what they'd like to see. They can look up county elected officials. They can look up county commissioners. They can see what they filed, where their campaign finances have come from, how they spend their money, and of course we're constantly updating it. January 31st is the deadline for filing of candidates that ran, interestingly enough, in the 2010 election, and they're bringing those reports in now, and as soon as we receive them, we're always putting them online for the public to see.
I will add, I'll put that link so you don't have to worry about writing it down. I'll put that link on EyeOnMuskegon.
Actually, if you just go to the county clerk's website, she's got it set up so, all of the links are right there. You just click on it, and you can go anywhere you want to.
That's true.
It is so user-friendly.
That's true. Yeah, I'll add her main site.
Yeah, just from that you can get anywhere you want.
I'll tell you what's kind of fun about that, though. And Susie, you sent me an interesting link about national contributions to political candidates, which was, I think, candidates over $200 in any one check. But, this is a small community. We know our county commissioners, we know our clerks and the various elected officials, the sheriff and the drain commissioner and others. And it's kind of neat to see, number one, who's getting money from whom. That matters sometimes. But it's also interesting to see, there's a friend of mine who gave X amount of money to someone else. It's all there. I believe you were if not the first county clerk, were you the first county clerk?
No, I followed the county clerks from Oakland County and Macomb County, but those county clerks also are very large in their clerk register of deeds, so they had lots of money, but they were great ones to follow. I also might want to add for you, however, that the candidates have an option of saying, I do not intend to receive or spend more than $1,000. If that's the case, they mark a waiver, and it means that up to that $1,000, they don't have to share with us where their money came from or what's going on. So I don't want to mislead people into thinking, why can't I find Commissioner so-and-so? Because, give you a good example, Commissioner Scott Plummer, he had no primary opposition last election, and he had no general opposition last election. So needless to say, he took the waiver, and you would not see anything for him if you're looking for what he might spend or where he got his money from last time.
That's an important point, because I think I might have, or certainly Susie would have maybe done some looking, and if she didn't see that, she would have said, oh my golly, Nancy Waters is in the pocket of Scott Plummer and hiding all this money from George Soros.
Actually, I did know why he didn't. I mean, he did no challenger anywhere. He was our commodity commissioner. So.
All right, well, good. Thank you for clarifying that. That's important. But you're here for another reason. You want to reduce the heat that your city and township clerks are going to get when we vote in 6 weeks or so.
Well, I'm here for a couple of reasons. First of all, I was a county commissioner for 4 years. And during the time that I was a county commissioner, I kept saying, if I were county clerk, what would I do differently? And I was concerned about openness and transparency. And so I want to start out by, first of all, saying that in the county directory, and also the directory is online, I have put in a sheet that says Election Commission, because those are the people, it's the Judge Neil Mullally, Nancy Waters, and our county treasurer, Tony Malaziotis, who are responsible for ballots. We have to approve the ballots, make sure spacing is looking easy, if it says a page 2, things like that, so I want to highlight them. The other ones that I want to also highlight at the end of the election, the Board of Canvassers, and these are elected, they're partisan positions. They serve a 4-year term. They're the ones that come in after the election's over. They certify everything if there's a recount, and that's on the Democratic side, Linda Whalen and Douglas Smith, and on the Republican side, Tom Higgins is no longer there. He's been replaced.
I think Shirley Pravaki.
Shirley Pravaki and Nancy Wells. So also in our directory, we have listed all the political party contact information, because our office gets lots of calls. How do I contact the state Democratic Party? How do I contact the state Republican Party? We also have our county chairs here for both parties, and I even went deeper with the vice chair, the secretary, and then we include the 2012 election dates and the 2013. Now, we're in the final stages of our new 2012 directory. It will have all of the current information, so I just want to point that out to you also.
And the link to that is also on the clerk's website. That is, if you've never looked at that, you should look at that. It has got a fabulous resource for anybody in Muskegon County. There's all kinds of things in there I didn't know we had. That was a great job.
It is a great resource, but there's so many things in it that one of the reasons that Nancy had, and by the way, Nancy, our county clerk, Nancy Waters, had specifically requested to get up on an early Sunday morning and speak with our audience, because she's interested in making sure that folks understand some of the very unique issues that are happening right now for this next election. And that's what we want to focus on, because if you want to vote, it really is icky. I think there's other words one might think, but it is icky if you get your ballot and it isn't counted. So.
Well, I'll start out by saying that I guess I assumed that this election would go as the August primary or the November general. However, this is a presidential primary. When you say the words presidential primary, that clearly means that it is a partisan primary. I didn't think anything of it until the week of January 6th, when my husband and I both received from our Fruitport Township clerk, Carol Halka, our application, and it had some information on there, some questions on there.
Now, this is the application that you send in?
This is the application for an absentee ballot.
Okay, so you get that first, you send that in, and then at some point they'll send you a real absentee ballot.
Some areas do choose to send out to anyone that's 60 or over, and that tells our age. I heard Susie and you talking about somebody's age. Oh, no, Oscar, our engineer, was talking about ages. But they send them out. Not all municipalities send them out. And then we have a chance to say, yes, I'd like an absentee ballot. Some people don't send them out, and they want to go vote, and that's fine. But what started happening was, I knew that Fruitport Township had probably sent out 1,200 of these, and people were getting them. And the very first question on the application for the absent voter's ballot, now remember, you cannot have an absentee ballot until you have requested one in writing. And that's why you get this absentee ballot application.
And you can do, just as a clarification, because I've been voting absentee for a while, you can either get it at get this application for the absentee ballot at your township or city hall, or I believe, can you get it at the county building?
Yes.
Also? Okay. Or you can just pick up a phone and call your local municipality, and they will send you the application for the absentee ballot.
So when these came in, Jim, the very first thing that my husband noticed on his was up in the upper right-hand corner, it said, you must select one ballot type below. If you do not select a ballot type, a ballot will not be issued to you. This is language that is very specific. It's giving him a choice of one ballot type below, and that if he doesn't do it, he's not going to get one, even if he returns this application signed, sealed, and delivered to the clerk. That was the first indication to him that there was something going on.
But there's a lot of information on that application for the absentee ballot, and unless you are someone like Susie, who reads everything, or Honey Bunch, who would read everything, if you're like me, you might just go down to the big red X, sign your name, and send it in.
Well, and that might be true, but that's why we tried in the ballot setup to list it at the top of the ballot and then down further in red and black, select ballot type here. You must select one ballot type. And it goes on to say, I hereby request the ballot type marked below for this election. You must select one, and these words are always in bold or red, one ballot type below. If you do not select a ballot type, a ballot will not be issued to you. Select only one ballot type, and then in this case, because I live in Fruitport Township, and there is no county-wide millage or election on the ballot, my choices were either to elect a Republican Party presidential primary ballot or a Democratic Party presidential primary ballot. That's for Fruitport Township. However, when you get into the other area of Ravenna Millage School District, where they have a millage on their ballot application would have them a third choice, ballot without presidential primary. If available, note this ballot choice is for voters not voting in the presidential primary who wish to vote on local proposals only. Now, when this was done, we didn't know because there was a deadline for people to file, but once we saw the ballots, and I've given both you and Susie and Oscar copies, and if you look at them, the ballot itself, this is the real meats of the presidential primary. On the Democratic ballot, it says Barack Obama or uncommitted. On the Republican ballot, it says Newt Gingrich, John Huntsman, Gary Johnson, Fred Krager, Paul Roy, Rick Perry, Buddy Reamer, Mitt Romney, Rick Santorum, Michelle Bachmann, Herman Cain, uncommitted.
Now, is that Freddy Krueger who's running for president as a Republican?
No, it's Karger.
Karger.
I thought it was Freddy Krueger who was from Halloween.
Karger.
And what's important for everyone to know on the Republican ballot, that the county clerks are not playing politics. There was a deadline in November in which the Secretary of State, Ruth Johnson, contacted all of these candidates because at that time they were all in the race. They were given an opportunity to withdraw their names from the ballot and by a certain deadline, and if they didn't, then she instructed us to go to press. We know that, for instance, Michelle Bachmann's out of the race, Herman Cain's out of the race, but if they vote for these people, we'll be counting them only because we've got to show that every vote is counted, but it'll have no significance because they're out of the race.
Now, I see that you've got the uncommitted, but below that uncommitted is a blank spot. Is that a spot for write-in?
There's always an opportunity for a write-in. It's a high benchmark. You can always write in somebody, but it's very difficult to win write-ins unless it's orchestrated or something.
Okay, all right. Well, now, let me go back to the one area I've been reading about, and we don't want to get this too wonkish, but a lot of people are complaining about having to declare that they are Republicans or Democrats. And we've got a break coming up here shortly, but we're going to address that because for some people it's very important, than others not so. So we will be back with Muskegon County Clerk Nancy Waters and the crew in just a few moments.
Factory Surplus Sales of Montague has everything your family needs to take on Michigan's winter weather. Jackets, boots, hats, gloves, and more. Famous name brands at huge savings. Save big on workwear with a huge selection of Carhartt clothing. Nothing works like Carhartt. So set your sights on savings and get to Factory Surplus Sales, your all-American clothing store. Open Monday through Saturday till 5:30, Friday till 8, Sundays 11 till 4.
All-American clothing store. Factory Surplus Sales.
Hey, West Michigan, Dave here. I've partnered with my friends at Gold Stash to bring our Total Money Makeover live back to Grand Rapids Van Andel Arena on May 5th. It's a new year, time to stop whining about not having enough money. Together, let's do something about it. I'll personally show you how to get on a proven plan to get out of debt for good. This stuff will change your life, and seats are just $29. So get them now at DaveRamsey.com and make 2012 the year you take.
The new Long Range Archery is your source for ice fishing equipment, Eskimo shanties, augers, bait, warm clothing, boots, and much more. Stop in and see all the great deals for yourself. The new Long Range Archery at 2530 Van Omen in Holland.
A message from Orlando Bloom, Joel Madden, Nicole Ritchie, Neo, and Taya Leone.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes.
Like not getting enough food or medicine.
Or clean, safe water to drink.
But we are gaining ground. A generation ago, twice as many children were dying.
Still, 24,000 every day?
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
Believe.
I believe that number should be zero. Believe in zero.
Join the effort. Visit UNICEFUSA.org.
I took a bullet to the side and left me paralyzed.
For injured veterans like Felipe Adams, there are veterans like Armando de la Rosa ready to help. Paralyzed Veterans of America, changing lives, building futures. Visit PVA.org.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes.
And we are back at EyeOnMuskegon. One thing I'd forgotten to mention early on, we do want you to be on the radio, and by all means, if you're interested in talking with our county clerk or any one of us here, give us a call. The number is 231-830-3109. We do want you to be on the radio. We want your voice to be heard, and we want your vote to be counted. Nancy, before we get a little in depth here, I'll give a background piece that I had read. County clerks are finding now that they are receiving requests for absentee ballots from voters that have not marked whether they want a Republican or a Democrat ballot, and that becomes a real problem for the county clerks because, you know, are they required to contact the person and say you sent in a request, but since you didn't specify Republican or Democrat, we don't know how to respond there. It will make a lot of people very grumpy to find out that perhaps their vote, well, for sure their vote will not count if in fact they don't get the correct ballot. What happens in the event that somebody sends in the application for the absentee ballot, neglects to mark Republican or Democrat, and you receive it here in Muskegon County?
Well, Chris Thomas, our elections director for the state of Michigan, as late as January 18th, started sending us absentee ballot application questions and answers, because every city, every township, every county clerk's getting all kinds of. And his response says, this is in response to the most common questions that have been coming up. What do I do if I receive an AV application with no ballot type selected? Now remember, these are the questions coming from the clerks who are going to be sending them out. The response is, contact the voter indicating that the ballot type selection is required in writing if they wish to participate in the presidential primary. You are unable to send an absentee ballot without this written selection. And then another one was, I have drafted a letter for voters who have not selected a ballot type. Is it permissible to send this letter along with absentee ballot applications missing the ballot selection? Yes, it is permissible to send a letter indicating that the voter did not select a ballot type and reinforcing the requirement that they must indicate. So there's more and more. I have the voter's phone number. Can I contact? Yes, you can call them. But remember that if you have absentee ballots like the city of Muskegon with maybe 2,000, that's a lot of people to be calling. And so everybody, this hit us kind of blinded. Here they had said, I received the application with the third option checked and I have no third ballot. What do I do? Because remember, the third option is only for those that are in Ravenna School District.
Oh, so if I'm in Norton Shores, for instance, and I mark that third, that's the only one I mark, what will happen when it comes back to your office at the county building in Muskegon?
Well, again, here, the state Secretary of State says contact the voter indicating that there is no third ballot option for your jurisdiction. Inform the voter that the ballot type selection is required in writing if they wish to participate. You are unable to send an absentee ballot without the written selection.
Okay, so it means that you're going to have to do a lot of work if, in fact, folks aren't getting the message, and that's one of the reasons that you asked to be on the show. I know that you've been doing, you've been visiting other places to get the word out. One of the things that I think it's critical here is that we've got plenty of time now, but there are some dates out there that you've got to get moving on. If obviously we know you can all go out and vote in person on election date, February 28th, but what about what are the dates that are critical for sending out or getting the application for absentee ballot, and what are the dates that the absentee ballot has to be received by your local community?
Well, what's interesting is the Saturday before the election, so that would be on the, I have a calendar here.
Right here.
That would be the Saturday of February 25th.
Okay.
All city and township clerks are required to be in their offices from 9 o'clock until 2 o'clock. So somebody that suddenly realizes they've got a family emergency or a business emergency and has to leave town, they can go down there and vote their absentee ballot in the clerk's office.
Now, you can just walk in and pick up an absentee ballot, right?
Well, they have to go through the regular process of requesting it, signing out the forms, voting it, and then leaving it there.
But you'd get the form, the request form, and then the absentee ballot all
right there
quickly. And now, what do you have to have in order to vote as an absentee person? Let's say you've never voted absentee ballot before. You want to come in on that Saturday or some other time before. You have to have a photo ID or
well, first of all, you have to check a reason for requesting an absentee ballot.
Okay.
You generally have to say you're 60 years of age or over. That late, with just a couple of days before the election, it might be that I expect to be absent from the community in which I'm registered for the entire time the polls are open. I'm physically unable to attend the polls without the assistance of another. I cannot attend the polls because of my tenets of my religion. I have been appointed an election precinct inspector in a precinct other than the precinct where I reside, or I cannot attend the polls because I am confined to jail awaiting arraignment or trial for voting.
Okay, so generally there's enough latitude in there that anybody can vote absentee if they like. Now, let's just say you've not voted absentee before, and you say, I've decided I want to do it this year, and I'm 60. what is it that you have to provide in order to get the application for AV and then the absentee ballot
Well,
itself?
the first thing, Jim, is you have to be certain that you are a registered voter.
Okay, so you have to be registered first.
And the
okay.
Secretary of State has a very good link on her website that lets you click in there to see where you, if you're a registered voter. It also tells you where you go to vote on Election Day. So again, there's so much information available, but it does require due diligence on the individual.
That site's on your website also?
I believe a link to that is on your website.
A link from ours to the Secretary of State is on the website.
And that will actually give you, if you type in your information, it'll actually give you a copy of the ballot you will be voting on.
Okay.
Oh, that's excellent. That's really helpful. And what I'll do is also on EyeOnMuskegon.com, we'll add links to the county clerk site also. But you need to be, okay, let's just start again here, though. You need to have a reason why you're not going to vote on time. You need to be a registered voter. Okay, what else might you need?
When you show up, you need to have a pictured ID. And the pictured ID could be a driver's license, it could be a state ID card, it could be a college card. We don't accept high school IDs for voting, and we sometimes run into problems when we have 18-year-olds that are seniors in high school. But if you don't have any of the pictured IDs, there is a form that the inspector just has you sign that no pictured ID is available, and then you are given your ballot.
This has been a big issue with me. It was a Republican Secretary of State, the lady who was prior to Ruth Johnson. Can anybody remember her name? Doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Terry Lynn Land.
Terry Lynn Land. And she moved to close the loophole that would allow people to vote without presenting photo ID. For instance, in I believe in Wisconsin and other states, they have same-day voter registration without the need to provide photo ID. So Terry Lynn Land, a Republican, tried to close this loophole. I am unhappy with that closure because I have voted many times without my photo ID. I've just gone in, and all you have to do is sign on the back of the form. On the front it says you have to affirm that this is who I am and show them the photo ID. But if you don't have the photo ID, you just sign a little form that says, I don't have photo ID, but I am who I am. Now, I know that the county clerks in our state is quite good. I don't think we have tremendous amounts of illegal voting, but this is a big loophole. All you need to do is to walk in, say, I don't have it, sign a little form affirming who you are. I know this is not Nancy's Ballywick here at all, but just remember, folks, it's not locked in tight. And for instance, you can go out and buy for $10, I've done it from the county clerk's office, you can buy a list of everyone who's voted in the last election. That will have their complete name, full, middle, and last. It'll have their birth date. It'll have their address. It will have if they voted on the election day or if they voted absentee. So in theory, let's say that you lived in a community that was maybe not as it would have to be outside of Muskegon, I would think, but you lived in a community where they're not as on their toes as they are here, and you have a list of 10 people that you know they voted before because you know that they're registered voters, but they're out of town, they've moved away, they've died, they've done any number of things. You walk in and say, hey, I'm Fred Smith. I don't have my ID. I affirm that I'm Fred Smith, and you go in, you get a ballot, and you vote. That's how you cheat.
So you've done this many times before, you say?
Well, and that's the comment I'd like to make. The comment I'd like to make in response to that is anybody that wants to break the law is always going to find a way to break the law.
Right.
I have absolute confidence in the training that we do of our inspectors and of the general public. In my 3 years of being county clerk at this point, and even before I was county clerk, in the years that I've participated for years, I've not seen this being abused or anything like that. And I do feel that there are circumstances, especially in this day and age of foreclosures on mortgages and people being homeless and families in the shelters and things, that we do have to be aware of all these situations.
Yes, I do. And again, I'm not throwing stones at you. It's a law and a rule at the state level. I would just like to see it closed, but separate issue. But let's go back, if we can, a lot of people say this isn't fair, Nancy, or this isn't fair to the folks who are going to be sitting at the polling booth or answering phone calls when you require that they have to pick Republican or Democrat. We used to believe that there was the sanctity of privacy when you went into the voting booth, that you didn't have to declare Republican or Democrat. Now, all of a sudden, if you want to vote in this election, you've got to say publicly to somebody that I want a Republican or I want a Democrat ballot. That's offensive to a lot of folks. What's up?
Well, what's up is that the legislature passed a law back in November, early December, in which the Republican-controlled House and Senate, and we need to say about the partisanship, because the governor put $10 million in his budget for a presidential primary. The legislature passed it, gave us the date, told us everything we had to do, and we had no involvement in it at all. The reason why I say that is because the purpose of a presidential primary is to elect delegates to their national Republican convention. So as you saw last night in the South Carolina, the presidential primary will be having Newt Gingrich go to the national convention with 21 delegate votes. It's all about delegate votes at the National Republican Convention, and I say that because the Michigan Democratic Party, Mark Brewer, sent a letter as early as October to the Secretary of State and said, we do not wish to participate. We will be having our delegates elected at a statewide caucus in all of the counties on May 5th. But despite that, she did choose to put the Barack Obama on the ballot, which meant that we were required to print and spend money. In most cases, I say wasted money, because we expect a very, very low voter turnout. It's not for the Democrats, it's for the Republicans. The Democrats are not pushing it or advocating it or suggesting it. In fact, on February 4th, the Democratic State Central Committee will be changing one of their rules, because back in October, one of their rules that they had adopted to participate in the primary was if you voted in the state primary, you would be prohibited from voting in the caucus. Now, I use the word primary and caucus because these are the partisan processes that delegates get elected.
Okay, so what you're telling us, and you brought up a very interesting point, a question I had is, why the heck is President Obama on this primary election ballot? Okay, and the answer to that is that when the Republicans who control the state of Michigan made the new law, which took care of this particular primary, they said that in one way or another, the president was going to be on there. Now, this current law that will affect the election at the end of February here in Michigan, that could be changed in a year or two. In other words, it might be different 2 years or 4 years from now?
Certainly, but there's one other thing that I think the public needs to be absolutely aware of. One thing that has not been getting out to the general public is that when you go in there to mark how you want, which ballot you want, we are required by law to keep that on file for 22 months. That's a part of the law. And it is open to the public. So your neighbor could come to your clerk's office and see, or whatever, and that's not getting out. And I think the reason...
What do you mean now? In other words, the people can see that you picked a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot?
That's
absolutely
all available to
so
the
all of a sudden,
public.
what we used to think was privacy in terms of your voting is kind of upside down a little bit, which requires, under the current law, that your choice of that Republican ballot or that Democrat ballot be made public record.
But remember, how you vote on that Republican ballot itself will still and always be secret. I think everyone will always make sure that ballots are secret ballots, even in a presidential primary.
Okay,
what this will do is try to keep people from crossing over.
Well, let's talk about that. So, we'll have to talk about that after our good friend Roger Miller gets singing a little bit here. Again, we are looking for your phone calls if you are so inclined at 231-830-3109, and we will be back shortly to talk about election 2012.
up sometime.
News Radio, I'm Liz White. Next stop, Florida, after Newt Gingrich won the South Carolina GOP presidential primary with 41% of the vote.
If you want your children to have a life of dependency and food stamps, you have a candidate as Barack Obama. If you want your children to have a life of independency and paychecks, you have a candidate that's Newt Gingrich. And I'll bet you we have votes everywhere.
Mitt Romney in second, settling in for the long haul.
Tonight, I want to congratulate, of course, Speaker Gingrich and my fellow Republicans on a hard-fought campaign here in South Carolina. We're now 3 contests into a long primary season.
Rick Santorum finished third, the Florida primary, January 31st. Joe Paterno's doctors say the former Penn State football coach is in serious condition, suffering complications from lung cancer. Students in State College have been holding a vigil. Paterno is 85. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast. Overcast skies today with a high of 36. Southeast winds 15 to 25. It'll remain overcast tonight with rain at times and a low of 33. Southeast winds 15 to 25 miles an hour. Tomorrow, windy with a mixture of rain and snow in the morning, and then snow showers in the afternoon with temperatures nearly steady in the upper 30s and southwest winds running 25 to 35 miles an hour. Keeping you informed, this is News Talk 1090 WKBZ. KBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Monday on the Wall Street Journal this morning with South Carolina in the rear view. It's on to the biggest early prize of the presidential nominating season. Also, as this happened in your family, the economy forcing more elderly folks back to work. And you're too rich to get aid but can't pay full college tuition. How to look poorer in the eyes of college aid committees. Monday on the Wall Street Journal this morning.
Catch it weekday mornings from 6 till 8 on News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
And we are back at EyeOnMuskegon. And we are looking at this election, the presidential primary coming up in about 6 weeks, and the reasons why you have to do some preparation. As a matter of fact, Nancy, if we did get this answered, I've forgotten already, but what is the last date that you can send out the application for AV? We know that you can vote absentee ballot all the way up through Saturday before the election. But what about if you want to send that absentee ballot request in? About when do you have to have that in the hand of your clerk?
Well, you probably need to make contact by the 21st of February, and I don't want to put a firm date on that because we have 7 cities and 16 townships. That gives you a total of 23 city and township clerks, and each one, they know their area and what they're doing, and but I can tell you that for those that send them out and don't return them, that even on the day of the election, the clerks are going over there to pick the ballots up.
Okay, so the clerks are really your good buddy, your friend in this election and every other things. I would say that, and I have generally a pretty high respect for the folks who work for the county, but I do believe the clerk's office is excellent, is supreme. Needless to say, our Republican Secretary of State has chosen to honor our Democrat county clerk with an honor, and that she in fact has taken this office and made it one of the more outstanding clerk's offices in the entire state. So I think that's pretty cool.
You know, I think that you want to make sure if you're going to vote in this election and you apply for an absentee voter ballot, that you follow up with your township, city, or village clerk, because they can't be making calls to, what if you have 1,500 people who check the wrong box? I mean, they can't afford that. In this election, and I will say, this was a partisan legislative action that happened that made this ballot so it was a closed presidential primary. And that, the cost of that closed presidential primary is now being borne by entire residents of this county, when really and truly it's a Republican primary. And I think they might have done that just so that we all funded that instead of just the Republican Party, because it really is a Republican primary. There really is no Democratic primary. They have a candidate.
You know, I'm really glad you brought that up. I have a problem with the average citizen in our state or the corporations, people, everybody pays taxes, funding private club voting, and that's really what's going on. The Republicans have their own club. Yep. They could have had a caucus if they wanted. They could have had county conventions. There are any number of other choices, and folks remember this. What did you say? About $10 million is going to be the cost.
Last year, just in Muskegon County, 2008, almost $45,000 just for the election in Muskegon County alone.
For the primary or for the general?
For the primary.
Okay. All right. So in fact, there are ways to make it less expensive.
Oh, yes.
And our politicians, when they make their votes, choose not to make it less expensive. Perhaps we ought to ask them to think a little further going forward. But I'd like to maybe go a little deeper into what you said, Susie, because what's happening in the state of Michigan in this presidential primary is what is called officially a closed primary.
Closed primary.
And that, as we found out, really is a misnomer because it isn't really closed. The thought is, and the logic here is, that the Republicans should have the opportunity to pick their candidate to be their nominee, just as the Democrats should. Now, in this case, there's not an issue because the Democrats totally support President Obama. So there is an option. I believe there is. No, actually, there is not an option to have a public primary that says only Republicans can vote because there's no badge that says you're a Republican. So in this election, even though it's officially called a closed primary, any Democrat or any independent or anyone who is legally able to vote can, the term is, cross over and vote as a Republican. So the Republican leaders in the state of Michigan, who could have had their own club, if you will, they could have made their own decision in the same way that the Democrats did with a caucus, or there's other choices that they would have had to pay for, but could have been purely for Republicans to vote in. The Republicans at the state level said, we're going to have what we call a closed primary, and it makes people think, well, okay, it's only going to be for Republicans. That couldn't be farther from the truth. I know that the rank and file in the state of Michigan were very unhappy that the state Republican leadership made that decision. They were very, very, very unhappy because the Republicans who are knowledgeable about this know that the difference between an open primary or a closed primary is essentially meaningless. And we may very well have, in the state of Michigan, a huge number of Democrats coming out to vote in the Republican primary. They are legally entitled to do so. I'm of course, a hardcore conservative Republican if the shoe was on the other foot, as it was not so many years ago. Mm-hmm. I may very well have gone out and voted in the Democrat primary to be mischievous. Unfortunately, when this final vote is done, it's not just going to be Republicans picking their candidate in the state of Michigan. It's going to be Republicans and anyone else who decided to get up and vote on that day.
Well, and I'd just like to respond by saying it's important that we keep the public informed that this is not like the August primary. This year, in every August primary, you do go in there, and you don't have to say whether you want a Democratic ticket or a Republican ticket. When you get in that polling place, what you get to do on that ballot is say, I want to vote for Democrats. And you can't split your ticket, but you don't have to get one or the other. And that is just so important. This is the closed presidential primary, and I don't want people thinking that when we get to the August primary that this is going to be handled the same way. Special legislation was adopted in Lansing, enrolled Senate Bill number 584, and signed by the governor to create this one. But remember, Jim, that in the August primary, you will be able to walk in. Your ballot will say on one side the Democratic Party and nominees, and on the other side the Republican Party. And when you start voting, you can vote for a Democrat, but you can't cross over and vote for a Republican because it is a primary that requires you to stay on one side, but you don't have to declare.
Well, extremely important point. That's right. And I think one of the reasons that this is confusing is that we don't often have a Republican or a primary for the presidential nomination this early in the year. And matter of fact, I would imagine in the past we might have had the presidential primary at the same time as our regular state primaries. So this is different this year. The only thing, with the exception of folks in Ravenna, the only thing that will be decided in this vote coming up in February 28th, and it may very well be hugely important given the fact that Newt Gingrich has thrown a monkey wrench into it yesterday, the only vote will be to pick your favorite Republican to get votes to the National Convention for the presidency of the United States. Come August, we're going to have our opportunity to go after everybody else.
Well, and I just want to say that you're absolutely right. Michigan.
I love it when you say that.
Michigan moved their presidential primary up because they wanted the players, the voters here in this state to have a key role after coming out of Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. Next will be Florida. But Michigan may be very decisive on February 28th as they're counting delegate votes. And I know that it used to be that for the Republican Party, it used to be winner take all. And if the state had 186 votes and you won it with 48% of the vote and somebody else had 36, you got all of them. Now I know the Democratic Party is on proportional voting, and I think Michigan may be also, where those 100 and some votes are separated by how well you did.
And I was just going to ask that, and I believe that the Republican Party will still have a caucus that actually will be the one that picks the candidate, and they could possibly not pick the one that the voters went for.
Wow, I'd be surprised if that were the case.
I would too, but it's possible.
That's news to me. One thing that I had heard of, and I would actually, Nancy, you bring up a good question. I wish we had the answer to. Is
I could be wrong on this too.
Are we proportional, or are we winner take all in this election? I don't know that answer, but I do know that at least early on, that the rules were, because the Republican Party did not want to have all these states piling on in the early months, that if you had your vote before, I believe it was March 1st, that you had the possibility of losing all or half of the delegates that were voted on. Now, I know they did that when Michigan, back a few years ago, when John McCain won one of these early primaries, only half of the delegates were ultimately approved. And I know the Democrats had a situation when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton ran against each other, too. So, as it turns out, here we have a bunch of political junkies, a bunch of knowledgeable people, Susie and certainly Nancy, and it's still fuzzy in terms of how it works. I think that's
only because I'm not a Republican and I don't go to the Republican meetings and follow what they do in theirs. I'm a Democratic elected official, and I can tell you that in the Michigan Democratic Party, we do go by proportionate voting.
Well, I think it says a lot about the fact that maybe our leaders in the Republican Party ought to be a little more clear as to how this works.
They have not been very forthcoming about how they want to do that, so I believe it's still up in the air, and it kind of looks like they're waiting until the election to see whose candidate comes through, and then they'll make a decision how they do that.
Well, this is going on. One of the things that was mentioned yesterday, that the Republican parties and the Democrat parties in each state, they set their own rules, and they can change those rules as they deem within whatever rules that empower them. But an argument about Newt Gingrich succeeding in his quest to ultimately get the presidential nomination is that he doesn't have the campaign structure in place that someone like Mitt Romney does. And a classic example of that is Newt Romney, his official residence is Virginia.
Not Newt Romney.
Thank you very much. Newt Gingrich is officially a resident. Yeah, that was critical that we clarify that. But Newt Gingrich's official residence is in Virginia. And in fact, the Republicans who run the state of Virginia, the Republican Party, not too long ago, certainly within the last year, I believe, they changed the rules of how you were able to get your name on the primary ballot. And I don't I don't know what's in their minds and their hearts, but the reality is that Newt Gingrich is not at this point, and I know there's a lawsuit going on, but he is not at this point on the ballot in Virginia, which I don't know when that primary is, but there's all sorts of little things that are being done at the state level. From the Democrats have done it, Republicans have done it, and politicians in general will do things that they can get away with as long as they know no one's looking over their shoulders. And that's what, frankly, this show's about.
And I would like to, I can see our time's getting short, and I just wanted to say, with all the things that have been going on in the clerk's office with the election, I would like to thank Clerk Waters for her effectiveness at getting the county board minutes up right after the board meeting. The board meetings a lot of times last till 5 o'clock, and the county closes at 5 o'clock. And by 8 o'clock that night, she's got them online. I know you did that on your own time, and I can tell you, I really appreciate that. And right now, when you're so busy anyway, that's an extra effort that I just want you to know we do appreciate.
Well, transparency is your middle name, Mrs. Waters. Truly, you have, and I've seen you knock heads with some of the county commissioners on this too. And,
she served as a county commissioner. She knows the job too.
She knows the little ways they can weasel around. That matters.
Well, I just want to say that, for instance, on the January 4th organizational meeting, while I could have just put minutes up, this was a very important meeting because they were adopting their rules for the next year. And we put a link. They were adopting the calendar. We put a link. They were adopting the chairs and vice chairs.
Where do you get these minutes?
These minutes, you can go to my county clerk, or just Google in there Board of Commissioners minutes. It's the full board minutes.
Okay, great.
And she'll have those links in there and all the information on the agenda too.
I have lots of those links on EyeOnMuskegon. And by the way, one of the things that I've been doing this year is I've been videotaping every county commission meeting. And for those of you who have insomnia, this is an absolute wonderful cure. It'll put you right to sleep. But if you're interested in seeing exactly what did happen, we are having those videos online. Of course, Oscar is doing the television video of this show, and actually we've got to somehow figure out a way to get the video, the real live video of this show on the website. The website again, EyeOnMuskegon.com. You can give me a call at 231-421-4409. That's a home number, and you can email me at EyeOnMuskegon@gmail.com. We talked about podcasts. The entire show that we just did today on the radio will be posted this afternoon. Next week, we've got our favorite captain, Captain Fred. His ship will not go down. He'll be our co-host next week. Don't forget the new time, 8:30. People have spoken, folks. They want more knowledge about what's going on in their community. Stay tuned for Tom Sanaki's Polka Melodies. I hope you all have a great week in our little piece of heaven, folks. Next week, we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.
Sometime.
Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC is turning up the heat and making it easy and affordable for you to drive home a new Chevrolet or GMC. Shop our 20-acre motor mall, and right now get 0 down and 0% on select models and 0 payments till spring. Plus, Benton is paying you top dollar for your trade guaranteed, up to 120% book value. We want and need your trade, even if you don't buy from us. Shop our giant 20-acre motor mall, over 1,000 vehicles. Pick your color and drive home a new Chevy Cruze, $139 a month or less. A new Silverado extended cab 4x4, $239 a month or less. Chevy Malibu, $168 a month or less. Or drive home the all-new 2012 Chevy Sonic, $12,999 or less. The time to buy is now, and the place to save is Benton. Hurry, shop today and save with Benton 0 down, 0% financing, and 0 payments till spring. Only at Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC's 20-acre motor mall on both sides of Henry Street, Muskegon, where Michigan shops GM.
The Talk of Muskegon is News Talk 1090, WKBZ Muskegon, and heard 24 hours a day on WOOD HD2 Muskegon.